Captain, obviously the pregnancy must be terminated. For the safety of the ship and the crew.
Worf, you can't assume the intent was belligerent.
That is the safest assumption.
Captain, this is a life form.
Before I get too far into this analysis, let me be beyond clear. I understand that this is a touchy and emotional topic. I'm only interested in discussing the concept within the confines of the Star Trek universe. For that reason, this will be one of the few times that I will be watching the comments pretty heavily, if not outright just making it approval only. With that out of the way, let's just get into it.
I'm pregnant.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure.
After doing the research and looking at dialogue and scenes, I have to say that I believe Starfleet, and the Federation really, is actually pretty pro-life. However, it does get there by addressing the commonly argued concerns brought forth by pro-choice advocates. For the purposes of this breakdown, I'll be looking at specifically only the Federation. I don't really want to get into the other species, specifically that of the Klingons nor the Romulans, who seem to have more barbaric policies by anyone's measure. It almost goes without saying that citizens of the Federation, as early as the 23rd century, have it better off than those who live in our real world today. And if I had to peg what the most important difference between the society of the Federation and that of ours is, it's most likely that the Federation's citizens live in a post-scarcity society. While it's arguable the extent of that post-scarcity society in the 23rd century, we do know that they completely achieved it within the inner core of the Federation in the 24th century. Arguably, everyone within the Federation's borders has achieved this, but again, the further out you get, the more debatable that is. With the advent of replicators, as well as warp drive, even the fringes probably do moderately well. This, of course, is excluding the colonies in hostile territories, such as the Klingon border or the Cardassian border. So, generally, Federation citizens don't have to worry about food, shelter, and other necessities. They are taken care of by the state, as well as technology that's employed. Living in poverty would generally be unheard of, with certain exceptions, as I've noted multiple times. We also know that Federation technology is basically magic. While there can be issues sometimes, from everything that's observed, pregnancy is relatively easy. It only becomes an issue if the vessel that they're in is under attack and they have a medical emergency due to two different species mating, and even then, it's something that can be taken care of pretty easily. And just to address it real quick, I'm aware that in Voyager, the Doctor talks about a fetus or baby being called a life sign. There are a lot of things that a tricorder would pick up as a life sign that we may not necessarily care about terminating if we needed to, so I don't feel like that phrase really proves anything. The medicine of the 24th century, and most likely before that, to the 23rd as I've stated, also allows for contraceptions for both male and females.
How did you...
One of us forgot our injection last month.
This only continues the trend of things being relatively easy to decide if you want to have a child or not.
Guess if I had been conceived on your world, I wouldn't even be here now, would I?
No.
No, I'd have been terminated as a fertilized cell.
It was the wish of our founders that no one have to suffer a life with disabilities.
Who gave them the right to decide whether or not I should be here? Whether or not I might have something to contribute?
I don't know what to say.
There's also dialogue around babies being born with quote-unquote genetic defects. Admittedly, this is mostly seen from the point of view of Geordi, and we may not have a solid basis on how the culture feels about it. However, it would appear that someone who is born with a quote-unquote disability isn't stigmatized in this society. In multiple episodes, Geordi is confronted with people and cultures that only want purity and balks against who he is. He even goes as far to say that he has a right to exist, and who are they to choose if he can live or not?
I want the cloning equipment inspected. Who knows how many other tissue samples were stolen? We certainly have a right to exercise control over our own bodies.
One of the last arguments that I'm aware of is the right to bodily autonomy, choice. Interestingly, the only people who appear to talk about having choice are males within Star Trek. Pretty progressive. Most all of the dialogue and the scenes that I find when it involves a female and talking about having a baby refer to the being, the fetus, as a baby.
Now, this is the first examination. The fetus is about halfway through the first trimester, about 6 weeks old.
By no means is that a slam dunk, it's just something interesting to note. At the end of the day, we don't have a ton of information on if abortion is something that is commonly performed or not. I personally don't think that it is. And honestly, the fact that it's not done a lot has pushed people to look at a fetus more as a baby. But all of this is because of how easy it is to have a child, how caring for that child isn't a problem, and how people have an option, but generally when it comes to medicine, they're going to be okay. Most likely, Federation citizens can opt to have an abortion, but it's just unnecessary because of the times. All of these are my opinions, and I'll admit, maybe I missed something. So, within the confines of the Star Trek universe, and that only, what are yours? Was there something I missed? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.